So you want to write a book, or perhaps you've written a book. Maybe you've written 100 books, but you still have some questions about those books. And today we have a very special guest with us today. This is an interview, or I should say a conversation, with a person, an author by the name of Laurie Smith, who is with the Hay House Penguin Random Publishing Company. And her book, Through Hay House, will be published in February. So she is here today to give us some insights about not only why she wrote the book, but also some of those marketing strategies that we all need, and how to balance that demand between being successful selling your book, and also how do you balance that with life in general? Because we all know things could get very busy. So before I introduce Lori, I will tell you that I am Teresa Palmer. Most of you know me. I've been the interim host on the Author's Corner for the past few months. And every week we join together to have inspiring conversations with other authors and those that aspire to be authors. I'll tell you, I'm going to let Lori introduce herself, but I'll just tell you briefly. Lori is an author, a speaker, a workshop facilitator, and a coach. So she wears many hats. And I'm going to turn it over to Lori now and let her introduce herself.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa. It's so wonderful to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. As you mentioned, I'm an author of The Flow Habit. The Flow Habit, though, just came out at the end of the year. So it's only a few weeks old, but it is actually out now. So I've already started all of the launch activities and the marketing activities. And I've been in the world of creativity and stress management and coaching for more than 25 years. But something happened right around the start of the pandemic for me personally that was a real turning point in my life and my work. And it prompted me to write this book. And in many ways, it's interesting. I feel like this book kind of happened almost accidentally, whereas I'd worked on many other projects before where it was this plan and, you have this outline and you have this vision. And The Flow Habit is a book that kind of just happened through my own personal journey. Should I tell that story of how it came
Yeah,
to
I was just
be?
going to say, I always love to hear the story behind the story. What was the inspiration? Did something particular happen that inspired you to write the book? So why don't we start there? Talk about how Laurie Smith came to write this book. What is that inspirational story behind it?
Well, it actually started on a down point. I don't know if you guys remember, but those early days of the lockdown at the start of the pandemic, I had kids. I still have kids, and they were young teenagers at the time. And I was getting those emails, like they can't go to school the next day, shouldn't be getting together with their friends. And they were asking me questions. And I was feeling my own anxiety of the stress of the pandemic. And I was having trouble showing up for them in the way I wanted to, in the really grounded way I wanted to show up as a mom. And because of a number of other things in my life, I realized that I was feeling really stuck. I wasn't feeling like my best self. And while I had been coaching and speaking and teaching, I realized that I had gotten away from those things that really brought me joy, one of which was writing. So I challenged myself to do something every day, 5 to 10 minutes a day, that brought me joy. I mean, so much of our to-do lists are often about things, that either make us better, like exercising or reaching goals. And I just, it felt so kind of radical to do something that just brought me joy. And to just write and show up and write, not for a project, but just for the joy of it. And I had learned about flow. I don't know if you know about the flow state,
Oh, yeah.
Teresa. Yeah. Um, Well, flow is that feeling we get when we're so into what we're doing that we lose track of time. And when I just graduated from college and I got my first job at a large pharmaceutical company. I was in marketing and communications at the time, so writing, but more corporate writing. And I had a long commute. And during that commute, I loved to listen to audiobooks. And at that time, an audiobook came out called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience by a Hungarian American psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And he's the man that discovered the flow state. So I knew about flow. And so during the pandemic, in addition to writing every day, my real goal was to experience flow because I realized it had been a long time since I experienced flow. And I called it my 28-day flow challenge. I was like, just for 28 days, I'm just gonna like write for 5 to 10 minutes a day and get with the idea of just trying to get into that flow state. And I was kind of embarrassed actually at the time because I've never been very good with regular routines. And so I didn't even tell my kids or my husband I was doing this. And sometimes I forgot that I was doing this and be like, right, time to go to bed. And I would just, be like, oh, I forgot I'm doing my flow challenge. And I would just write for 5 minutes a day or just 5 minutes real quick before I went to bed. But over time, after a few days of doing this and then a week of doing this, I started to feel so much better. I started to feel like me again. It was like I was returning to that spark and the joy of writing. And so I started telling friends, other creative friends who I knew would understand and might want to join me. And I invited them to choose an activity that got them into flow and brought them joy. And it was different for each person. I have a friend that started doing little watercolor paintings on index cards every night because she loved art. My mother started waking up every morning and walking and to see the sunrise every morning. And she was in her 80s and she continued to do that for more than a year. So it kind of started to kick off this movement, and friends told friends. And then I got the courage to put it out on Facebook. Hey, I'm doing this little thing, and people started joining. And I started hearing from people I hadn't heard from in decades that either wanted to join or knew about flow. And then I put it on Instagram, and soon people from all over the world were joining. There were people from India and Uganda, and I just got so excited, from Europe, all different countries in Europe. And, we're so different in so many ways on the outer, right? The outer form. But what I love about flow, and I loved about, I still facilitate these 28-day flow challenges for free. And what I love about it is when people share with me what their activity is and what brings them joy, you really get to the essence of who people are, right? You're all of a sudden you're having a real authentic conversation. And so because I was writing every day, I started writing emails to the people that were participating, and I chose a word of the day and a question of the day, and it all had to do with flow. And I started writing these, and I still share these emails. But over time, I love research so much. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for years, so I love reading peer-reviewed journals and psychological research. And there's so much research out there about the flow state. And so I started getting into flow, reading all the studies and learning about flow and all it had to offer us. And I realized people need to know about this. People need to know how powerful getting into the flow state is. And I started hearing stories from people around the world about how the 28 days flow challenge was changing their life. And it seems so silly and counterintuitive that like doing something 5 to 10 minutes a day just for the joy of it can lead to us achieving things and writing books. But that's truly what happened. And the synchronicities, kind of one thing led to another. And now here I am with this book.
Ah, and it's and it's good to have you. It's good to have you. And when you talk about the flow state, I'll just share something.
Yeah.
I was familiar with it. I've been familiar with it for a long time. But what was interesting was I had gone to Omega, and we're going back maybe 25 years now. And I was starting to play tennis at the time.
Mhm.
And a couple of us had the idea, well, we'll go to Omega. And what it was called was the flow of tennis.
Oh,
And what they did was they built on the principles, the flow principles,
mm,
and made it into something that was achievable with tennis.
mm,
So you would get into this flow state with tennis. And when you got into that flow state, you weren't thinking about the score, you weren't thinking about anything. It was really the ball and you with the racket. And it was so amazing because your focus was simply you and the ball. And it we just had such a good time with it.
mm,
And what they would do before we would play a little tennis is the coach would start off, or the pro would start off with a brief meditation to
mm,
get you out of your head and into that flow state and into your heart. And it was amazing because you would think meditating before tennis would be the last thing you would want to do, because you want to be engaged with the game of tennis and you don't want to be in that calm state. But it's that calm state that really is flow. And I think people don't understand that enough, that they think when they're hyped and they're ready for a game, or they're ready for something and they're all hyped up and excited about it, that's flow. But that's not really flow, that's excitement. And
mm,
that's your head talking. Flow is that state that you go into where that's all that matters at the time. And whether it be tennis, riding, anything. So I think flow is very, very important.
mm.
And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, we had a little conversation before we went on the air. I had shared with you that yesterday there was another broadcast that I was hosting on the Own It platform. And we got pretty real with it and pretty raw with it, about authenticity and about AI and about fantasies, and how sometimes we feel, even ourselves, that we could be living in a fantasy world, that success, that everything. We see things on Instagram, we see things on Facebook, on YouTube, and we say, I want to be like that. I want to have 1 million followers. Look at that person. They've got this gorgeous gown and they're walking down this star-studded golden staircase, and they're getting to a Rolls Royce, and now they're on their private jet. And oh, I just want to be like that. And how could I be like that? I'd like you to talk to us about authenticity and what that means as an author.
I'm so glad you asked this question. And this is something that I struggle with. I think we all do. And actually this is what I love about flow so much, is that, as you mentioned, when we're in flow, it's as if the volume of that self-consciousness and focusing on other turns way down. A lot of women shared with me that, there's so much focus on, not getting distracted by our phones and our notifications and all of that. And it's all focused on outer, and that how when we can block that out, we can focus more. But sometimes those voices are the inner voices keep us out of flow too, right? Because we internalize all of that. Like you're saying, the looking out and seeing that as the value of success, or what we should go for. I mean, I think I often talk about sparkles. And the way I look at it is, when we connect with our true selves, it's as if we sparkle. There's something there that sparkles for us. And it might take different form for each of us. For me, what first sparkled was writing. But then my intuition called me to doodle or to dance. But that getting to that essence of what sparkles, almost like that little kid within us, I think that is the true power. Like, I have been amazed by the goals that I have achieved and the amazing things that have happened in the community that's grown all around me by focusing on my sparkle and sharing that, and also paying really close attention to other people. And when their eyes sparkle and they're lit up and they're so excited, or they're in flow, or they're connected, it's like people have a different energy when they're doing what they're doing to achieve something outer versus when they're doing what they're doing because it just feels like the right thing in the moment. And when they're doing it because it's the right thing in the moment and they're so connected to their core or their passion for a subject, like me with my obsession with flow, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense, that's contagious and it's infectious, and we it's like we're moths to a flame and we want to be near that person and we want to hear what they have to say, and then it almost, it's like it lights a fire within us. And that's my goal. Like, I keep, as I've been marketing the book, it's so easy to get caught up in everybody out there, how I should market the book and what I should be doing and all the formulas. There's so many human devised formulas for how to do this, right? And at some point, we take all that information in and we learn from the outer, but at some point it's all about that spark, right? And we have to do it in a way that lights our own fire, that feels right, because that's really what it's all about. I mean, from a big picture of life, I'm like, that's what we're here to do, is share our unique gifts and our unique essence and do it in our own way. And the research is very clear on this, that autonomy is the key to getting into flow, and there are so many benefits to getting into flow. I when I looked at the research for flow, there were all these conditions that researchers said that are related to flow, that coexist with flow. But when I looked at the list, I was like, some of them were things we have control over, like focus, which we may or may not have control over, but at least we can try, right? And then some of them were like, we lose track of time, which that's a very hard thing to, it's almost like that just happens, right? So I broke these into two lists and I'm like, okay, some are the benefits of flow actually. And some are, but I was really sifting through to be like, what are the steps we can take to get into flow? And there were 4, and I was doing this on my kitchen counter, and then I had this like eureka moment. I'm like, oh my gosh, it spells a word. I was looking for that acronym, and the phrase was feel positive. And I came up with the word positive represents all the benefits of flow, the 8 top benefits of flow. But the word feel represents the 4 steps that we can take to get into flow. And the first one of the FEEL acronym is focus. But the question that accompanies that is, what is my top priority in this moment? And I think that question is a great question just to sort of have as a mantra through life, because it brings us back to the present moment. And it also, I think, depending on how we use it, connect us with our core and that sparkle. And when we can connect with, like, what is that soul sparkle telling me is my top priority in this moment? Is it to connect with other people, or is it to reach something, as you're saying, out there, like that superficial goal that's been established by someone other than myself? Or is it that, like, what's that essence saying is the top priority? And so anyway, that's what I'm trying to do as I'm marketing the book, is to stay authentic, is just stay connected with that core.
Yeah, I think we have to, and I think I learned a valuable lesson about authenticity. I had a mentor. He's since transitioned. 10 years now. He's transitioned, and he worked with WBAI in New York at the radio station, and he was internationally known. He was a renowned neuropsychologist, and he had a huge practice on 57th Street in New York, and he did a lot of work. He did the Positive Mind with Armand DeMille. And at the time, I was searching for outward success because I had reached a point in my career where I couldn't move forward anymore in that particular place. And I wanted to get into speaking and into the radio work. And Armand had a contest on WBAI, and I happened to win the contest. We had to talk about, I forget what it even was, and I won it. and I won as a guest to be a guest on his radio program. And I was so excited about it. And Armand could see through everything. Well, I arrived, and he actually had a studio on West 57th Street in his building, his building for psychology. And, we talked a little bit and all, and we did the broadcast, and it went really well. And I said, wow, I really enjoyed this. And he said, I would love to have you. He said, I think you're very dynamic. The audience loves you. He said, but you have to do this for the right reasons. He said, you're doing it to achieve something outside yourself. And the audience didn't pick up on it today. He said, but if I continue to have you with that kind of mindset, they're going to pick up on it that you're only out here to achieve something for you, not for them. And he said, I built this radio show on people and their feelings and giving people what they need, not what I need. He said, so I'm going to give you some time to think about it. He said, but really dive deep and see what is your motive behind really wanting to do this. He said, when you come up with an answer, he gave me a cell phone. He said, when you have an answer, you call me. He said, and then we will talk about me mentoring you. Well, at first I was insulted, because he practically told me I was looking for quid pro quo, which I didn't realize it, but the more I thought about it, the more, I wanted that success. It was a very popular, well-known program. WBAI was well-known. It was like, wow, how great is that going to look on my resume? And I'm actually associated with these people. So about a month later, I called him. I said, you're absolutely right. So we started working together. He mentored me, and he groomed me for a lot of things. And I have to say, it really was a turning point because he really showed me what authenticity was and not doing something for outside success. Not to be rich, not to be famous, not to make a lot of money, not to have 1 million viewers in the radio program or to get in the subway in New York and have somebody say, aren't you Teresa Palmer from The Positive Mind? Oh, I love your show so much. So it really was a turning point. And authenticity is so important. And like you said, with the marketing, I think that's the main thing with marketing is a lot of times we're superficial. And I'm certainly not getting down on anybody that wants to do very aggressive marketing. That I still don't understand why I get a lot of emails with books being published, and people will say to me, you don't even have to read the book. They'll send you a file. You don't have to read the book. All I want is the Amazon review because I'm going for Amazon bestseller. And I don't do it because number one, it's not authentic. If I don't read the book, how do I know if I even like the book? How do I know that I want to review the book? And to me, you're not being authentic if you could say to me, you don't have to read the book.
Right.
Just give me a review. And I don't understand it. I don't do it. When people ask me why I don't do it, I'm very honest with them. They say, well, it's a marketing thing. Everybody does it. You have to get with the program. Well, that's not a program that I want to get with. So we could even go a little over if you have time. We don't have to stick to the 30-minute mark, as this is so interesting. But now with your marketing, how do you balance that authenticity with that demand that is placed on any author to sell books? And that need or that want, I should say, we all have that want. That yes, we would all like to be successful. I don't think anybody could sit here and say, well, no, I just totally do it altruistically. I don't want any success. Maybe Mother Teresa, but we're not Mother Teresa. So how do you balance all of that? And how do you find that balance and flow in that?
Well, first, I just want to, I can't help but refer to your story and just point out how courageous and how real and authentic you are for sharing that story, right? Because I think there's a lot of shame around, we have these two sides of ourselves. And that's actually why chapter 1 in my book is all about the sparkle and connecting to our authentic self. And chapter 2 is all about these voices, right? And this is a very real part of being a human. And I think we're always, I think one of the blocks to flow, and that includes flow in marketing or flow in anything, is judging ourselves for having that urge, right? Having that pull to have outward success, as well as the inner pull, that they will never go away. We can never be perfect. And I actually think when you talked about marketing, I think the key is when we focus on our message and we're really, really, really clear about why we're doing this, and what we want, how we want to help someone. And as I wrote this book, and they tell you as you write a book to think of one person, right? And I think I thought of multiple people as I was writing it, but I really wanted it to be a conversation, a lot like this conversation we're having, where it's just you're speaking to one heart to one heart, equal to equal, having a conversation. And, for me, I am so passionate about flow, and I'm so convinced that it could help heal so many people and help us connect with that unique spark. And I've seen it help so many people that for me, I just keep focusing on that and being like, that's my purpose, that's my mission. And so, yes, I want to sell a lot of books because I've poured my heart and soul into this, and I've thought about it, and I've been working on it for 6 years, and I've thought about how to write this material so that it's accessible to the most amount of people possible. And I have hundreds of footnotes in here, and I've done it with so much integrity because I've researched, and then I have you know worked so hard to try to make that research in bite-sized like boxes, like flow tip, flow fact, flow break. Let's all take a breath and make it accessible. And the whole goal of the book is, in the book I constantly say you're already a flow expert, and it's just remembering what you already know. Like, it's not a human crafted, there's not steps to getting into flow. It's all within you. So for me, what brings me joy is seeing the sparkle on someone's face when they remember, like the story you told me about the tennis. Like, I love that. I love that. That makes me so happy to like hear anytime anyone like kind of remembers, right? Remembers that feeling of flow, and it's like, oh yeah, I love that feeling, and realizes that it's all accessible to them. That makes me so happy. So the book gives me an excuse to talk about that, and I just want to touch as many hearts as possible with that message. And I want to sell the book because I've worked so hard at, it's not about me, at trying to figure out how to touch hearts and remind them, anybody, that we have this within. And so when we focus on that, I think, and what sparkles for us and why we wrote the book in the first place, it's got to be about the message. It's got to be about the why. And I think that's what makes marketing not marketing. And that's how I'm trying to like find balance. And whenever I'm stretching out of my comfort zone and either doing an interview, or I just did a big talk at a local bookstore, and there were lots of people there, people that knew me from all different walks of my life. And I was sharing this and showing this side of me. And I was nervous, and I had so many jitters beforehand. And what helps me get through that is remember, it's not about me. And it's not about selling the book. It's about spreading the message and spreading the joy and touching people's lives and reminding them of the power that they have within. And if flow can be one part of that, and I can help with that, great. But at the end of the day, they're going to do it themselves. And so in their own way, through lots of different pieces of information. So I don't know if I fully answered your question, because the
I think
balance
you
of
did.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you did.
Yeah.
Because the main message, I mean, it's always about our clear message.
Yeah.
And I've been a Toastmaster for a number of years.
Mm.
And now I'm actually in a French Toastmasters club, which I'm pretty good with French.
Speaking French? Wow, good for
Yeah.
you.
So even though I have my DTM, a Distinguished Toastmaster, I'm a Toastmaster mentor. I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm starting all over again. And I'm really learning the clear message, because when I was speaking in English, and I've spoken many different places and conferences, I was always clear with my message. Number one, it was in my native language. Number two, I knew what I was talking about. Turn that with another language that you're not fully in command of, that
Mm,
the words don't come that easily, and see how you could create that clear message. It's
mm,
not easy.
mm,
And like you said, that's the most important thing, is to give the audience what they need. It may be one person that needs that message out of 2,000 people,
yeah.
but that's who you're there for. It's not
Mhm,
about you. It's not about, if you're speaking at a conference, how fancy your PowerPoint is, or what your, even what your credentials are, how renowned you are. It's all about, could you get that message across to other people? And
mhm,
I think that's what is missing in marketing. I
mhm,
really believe that. And maybe that's why I'm not good at it and I don't really care for it that much, is because a lot of times we make it about us.
mhm,
I need to sell so many books, or I need this to happen, or if I get this, I could get that. If
mhm,
this happens, then that happens. Well, what about what the book expresses? And what about what you wrote? And who is it touching?
mhm,
And what kind of message are people getting? If
mhm,
the message is, I want a thousand, um, I had somebody send me an email. She wanted to get so many reviews. And
mhm,
again, it was, I didn't have to read the book. All I had to do was review it. And
mhm,
she said, if I could get X amount, and I don't remember the number, X amount of reviews, my book will be shown on this. And then that'll pave the way for me to enter this contest to get this award. And I
mhm,
could do this, this, and this. And I threw the email away. And
mhm,
I know this person personally. And I thought, you're not doing that to help people. You're
mhm,
doing that for yourself.
mhm,
So, I think you touched on an excellent point there, that the marketing isn't about you. It's
mhm,
about, how could you use that marketing, and how could you use that book to help other people?
mhm.
So I'm going to ask you if there's any last words. Is there anything I didn't touch upon that you think is important in this conversation that you want to say that you want to say?
I think it's mostly about having fun, and really, like, if you're working to market, and this is what I'm trying to do, is really, and not just connect soul to soul, but really have fun with it. And even the story, I love your story about speaking French. Flow is a lot about stretching ourselves. It really is, and finding that sweet spot where we're not stretching ourselves too much that we get anxious, but we're stretching ourselves so we're not stagnant and bored, like I was when I was at that point in my life where I needed to do the 28-day flow challenge. It's like stretching ourselves just enough that we're in that active state of engagement, and we're having fun, and we're learning, and we're experimenting. And sometimes, we look silly, or we have egg on our face, or people don't get it, but there's that energy of growth that I think is so fun. And so, even just playing around with the marketing and figuring out what's too much, what's stretching me out of my comfort zone is too much. So I'm losing the flow of my overall life. But what is stretching me as a human being, and allowing me to have fun and play and feel flow. So, yeah.
And I think that's a great way to end. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank
And
you.
I
Thank
hope
you
that
so much.
this conversation is inspiring to a lot of people out there, that when they look at authorship, when they look at marketing, when they look at all those things, that they're looking at it from the perspective of, number one, why am I doing this? What was my inspiration, or what is my inspiration for doing this? Number two, am I being authentic about it? Is this a clear message that people out there, that I feel there's a need, a question to be answered? How am I delivering that message to people? And am I having fun with it?
Mhm.
Or, am I so serious about it that I can't have any fun, that I can't even bring that joy to other people? And in the end, it's all about joy. It's all about fun. It's all about finding that inner child within us to be playful, to enjoy what we're doing. So thank you so much, Lori, for coming on today.
Thank
And I
you.
think that this was a great conversation. And I have read your book. I enjoyed it tremendously. So I
Awesome.
would recommend the book, The Flow Habit, to anybody out there that wants to get into the flow, or maybe just wants to reconnect with the flow. So again, thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
everyone for joining us, and for uh, if you're listening to the replay, thank you for that. And see you next time.
Thank you so much, Teresa.